K through 12 schools should be open, and that safety is increased if schools require all adults who work in the schools to get vaccinated.
Biden's plan includes using federal workers to help hospitals, increasing access to free testing, and getting more shots in arms. A health security expert from Johns Hopkins says no more lockdowns needed.
Those lockdown policies have very negative effects on everything else. And this is not December of 2020. This is not a time when we were helpless. We have many tools at our disposal to deal with COVID-19.
State and local officials also taking action against Omicron. In Atlanta, the mayor is reinstating an indoor mask mandate. In Chicago, early next year, you'll have to show proof of vaccination if you want to enter a restaurant, go to the gym, and access other indoor spaces. But the rule won't apply to all locations like grocery stores and religious institutions. And in New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio is offering people a $100 incentive to get their booster shot. As cases surged over the weekend, Dr. Noah Greenspan opened the door of a new location of his Pulmonary Wellness and Rehabilitation Center in Midtown Manhattan.
The number of long haulers is staggering. So I think that this is going to be a chronic problem for not just individuals, but for states, for countries around the world.
Long haulers are people who continue to suffer from COVID symptoms months after they were infected. Dr. Greenspan says he sees increasing demand for facilities treating long-term CCP virus patients in the near future. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
And in less than 2 weeks, proof of vaccination will be mandatory for all indoor dining in Philadelphia. What do restaurant staff and diners have to say about the new rule? Let's take a look.
Starting January 3rd, Philadelphia's indoor dining mandate will go into effect. Proof of vaccinations will be required at all indoor restaurants and bars, as well as other places like sports venues and movie theaters. We asked people what they thought of this new rule.
I've been vaccinated, but I'm against the government telling me what to do and taking away our freedoms, especially our body, right?
I actually think it's a great idea to have a vaccine mandate for dining in because it provides a good incentive for people to actually get vaccinated.
Drew Young is the general manager of an Asian fusion restaurant in Old City. He saw the negative fallout of this mandate.
My opinion is it's pretty invasive. Over the past few weeks, we've seen that people who are fully vaccinated with booster shots have been catching COVID, getting seriously ill from it, and just making a mandate that pretty much you can't go anywhere without a vaccination, I think is pretty extreme.
Young said his restaurant had closed for a full year amid the pandemic. When it finally reopened, COVID restrictions again pushed customers away.
They hit us with different mandates every other month, and now we have to wait for January 3rd to have even less business inside. So gradually, business has just declined. Anytime you think it's going to get better, they come out with another mandate and make it hard for us.
Inside a food court near the city's historic landmark, the Liberty Bell, a dessert store manager said business is still hurting.
This is a touristy spot, so people who come here are tourists. So just strict travel guidelines, and if they don't follow it, they can't even go off the plane. So people can't come and visit places like this, and then that impacts us because they're our main customers. So.
Under the new mandate, patrons must show their vaccination card or a photo of it when dining indoors. Establishments failing to comply could face fines of up to $2,000 per day. NTD News, Philadelphia.
A reporter pressed President Biden on Senator Joe Manchin's refusal to support the Build Back Better plan. Manchin has openly disagreed with the $1.75 trillion social spending bill.
Mr. President, did Senator Manchin break his commitment to you? When you announced the framework, the White House says that all 50 senators were believed to get behind it, all 50 Democratic senators. So did Senator Manchin break his commitment to you?
Senator Manchin and I are going to get something done. Thank you.
Manchin said on Monday that White House staff did inexcusable things that led to his rejecting the plan. The Democrat senator's support is crucial to getting the bill passed. Democrats have only a slim margin of control in the Senate, and Republicans are united in their opposition to Build Back Better. The Washington Post reported that Manchin had earlier offered Biden an even larger $1.8 trillion bill before agreements broke down. Manchin mentioned what he called inexcusable during media interviews, but he didn't go into detail. He didn't blame President Biden for what happened. He blamed White House staff. The U.S. is on its way to building solar energy farms on 90,000 acres of land. This would be a shift from the previous administration's focus on more traditional energy sources like coal and oil. NTD's Miguel Moreno reports.
Part of President Biden's plan for America is countering climate change. To make this happen, the administration is moving to build more solar energy farms, which would cover about 90,000 acres of land altogether. That's about 140 square miles. The administration calls these farms solar energy zones. This project would be developed on public lands in Colorado, in Nevada, and in New Mexico. These farms are supposed to power parts of the country and lead to a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. According to the Bureau of Land Management, if these farms are built, they could generate enough electricity to power more than 29 million homes. Solar power on public and private lands generated about 2% of U.S. electricity in 2020. That year, fossil fuels and nuclear energy combined generated about 80% of U.S. electricity. At the moment, the Bureau has only nominated land for the 90,000-acre project, but it must be approved before construction begins. The Interior Department on Monday approved 2 solar farms in California. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Former Trump advisor Michael Flynn sued the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th breach of the U.S. Capitol. He's seeking to block the panel from obtaining his phone records. Flynn is a former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency and was former President Trump's national security advisor. Flynn alleges the committee's subpoena is too broad in scope and punishes him for constitutionally protected speech he engaged in as a private citizen. He also alleges the congressional committee has no authority to conduct business because it is not a duly constituted select committee. The House committee has requested Flynn testify before the panel and that he hand over documents about an alleged command center at a Washington hotel. The committee alleges it was set up to lead efforts to deny Joe Biden the November 2020 election win. Flynn's lawsuit comes nearly a week after freelance photojournalist Amy Harris filed a lawsuit against the committee for the same reason. Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, also sued the committee for overreaching on subpoenas. And after a full day of deliberations, jurors in the trial of Kim Potter said they still couldn't reach a consensus. The former Minnesota police officer is accused of shooting and killing 20-year-old Daunte Wright at a traffic stop.
A 12-member jury is weighing the manslaughter trial of former Minnesota police officer Kimberly Potter. Deliberations began Monday afternoon and lasted for a full day on Tuesday without reaching a verdict. Presiding Judge Regina Chu read 2 questions from jurors in open court.
The first question is, if the jury cannot reach consensus, what is the guidance around how long and what steps should be taken?
In response, Chu reread an instruction, encouraging the panel to continue discussions until reaching an agreement.
You should not hesitate to re-examine your views and change your opinion if you become convinced they are erroneous. But you should not surrender your honest opinion simply because other jurors disagree or merely to reach a verdict.
The jury also asked for permission to remove the zip ties securing Potter's 9mm handgun, the weapon fired at Wright, so that they could handle it. Chu granted the request. Potter is on trial over the fatal shooting of black motorist Daunte Wright on April 11th. The former officer says she mistook her handgun for a taser during a traffic stop. She pleaded not guilty to first and second-degree manslaughter. The charges carry maximum sentences of 15 and 10 years, respectively. In closing arguments on Monday, prosecutors said Potter acted with culpable negligence in drawing the wrong weapon, while the defense argued that Wright caused his own death by resisting arrest and that Potter was justified in using force. The shooting of Wright sparked several nights of protests outside the police station in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota.
The jurors responsible for assessing charges of fraud and conspiracy against former Theranos CEO Elizabeth Holmes met for their second full day. They're deciding if Holmes turned her company into a massive scam. After a 3-month trial that captivated all of Silicon Valley, they have plenty of evidence to review. The jury finished Tuesday without a verdict, though, and are scheduled to resume deliberations Thursday. Holmes briefly appeared in the courtroom Tuesday afternoon after the jury submitted a note to the court. The trial revolves around allegations that Holmes duped investors, business partners, and patients about the efficacy Theranos blood testing service device. Their technology was supposedly able to scan for hundreds of diseases and other problems from a few drops of blood. The company raised over $900 million from investors. But flaws were exposed in the company's technology in 2015 and 2016. If convicted on all counts, 37-year-old Holmes could face up to 20 years in prison. And no verdict has been reached after a full day of jury deliberations yesterday in the sex abuse trial of British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell. The jurors asked the judge 3 questions related to testimony from the women who accused Maxwell of setting them up for abuse by Jeffrey Epstein when they were teenagers. Deliberations resumed this morning. 59-year-old Maxwell is accused of recruiting and grooming 4 teenage girls for Epstein to abuse between 1994 and 2004. She has pleaded not guilty to 6 counts of sex trafficking and other crimes. The jury began deliberations late Monday afternoon after 3 weeks of emotional testimony from the 4 accusers. Maxwell's attorney have argued that Maxwell is being scapegoated for Epstein's crimes since Epstein is dead. Maxwell's attorneys have focused their defense largely on undermining the credibility of the accusers, arguing that their memories have faded over time and they're motivated by money. The sex trafficking charge carries a maximum prison sentence of 40 years. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, is launching its first body-worn camera pilot program. The move is aimed at catching up with local law enforcement agencies and promoting transparency. The goal is to determine the effectiveness of using body cameras for pre-planned law enforcement efforts. The agency is kicking off the 6-month pilot program in 3 regions. That's Houston, New York City, and New York, New Jersey. The pilot will include about 55 members of the division's special response team. Officials say recording will be prohibited where cameras generally are not allowed or permissible, like locker rooms, dressing rooms, or medical facilities. Encounters with undercover officers or confidential informants and cooperating defendants will also be barred from recording. And ICE personnel will be required to tell people that they're being recorded. ICE also plans to pilot body-worn cameras within the agency's Immigration Enforcement Division. It's still working with the union to finalize those plans. Do you tip when you go out for coffee or dinner? Most people say you definitely should, but some New Yorkers don't agree with that system. NTD's Ariane Pastar was at their rally in Manhattan.
Congresswoman Maloney joined advocacy groups here at this restaurant in Lower Manhattan. They're calling on New York's governor to implement a higher minimum wage for tipped restaurant staff.
I will join my voice in calling Governor Hochul to act with an executive order.
Since 2019, almost 20% of New York's restaurant staff has quit their jobs. According to the group One Fair Wage.
One fair wage!
That's mostly because they earn below minimum wage.
They are done. They are telling the industry, take this job and shove it. They are saying we will not work for sub-minimum wages anymore.
I asked Congresswoman Maloney if there could be other reasons for the high number of resignations since 2019.
It could be their health concern. Number one, they're on the front lines. They're on the front lines interacting with people, and that could be one concern.
She said she doesn't think that high unemployment benefits contributed to the resignations. Now, some argue that restaurants will have to increase their prices if they start paying their staff more.
That's all excuses. The rent goes every year. The water, the electric, everything is go every year, except when it's come to paying workers, they said, oh, the menu is gonna go crazy.
A restaurant owner who started paying his staff minimum wage told me it actually helps his business.
When you have people that work for you a long time and they know your business and they love your business, they're gonna help you grow your business.
Supporters of the tipping system say that customer service is better and staff can actually end up earning more. Ariane Pastar, NTD News, New York.
And a donation of $180,000 in cash was sitting in a cardboard box in a mailroom for months before anyone noticed it. The box was addressed to the physics department at the City College of New York. It had been delivered on November 12, 2020, when the school was in distance learning. No one opened it until in-person classes resumed this semester. And when they did, they found stacks of $50 and $100 bills totaling $180,000. There was also an unsigned letter. It said the sender was an alumni who wanted to give back to the school that jump-started their scientific career. City College of New York Police, the Postal Service, the FBI, and the Treasury Department determined the money was clean, but they have not been able to identify the donor. The Physics Department is planning to fund 2 full tuition scholarships each year until the money runs out. At least 6 CVS locations will close next January in downtown San Francisco. The closures come after an announcement to shut down a wide range of stores nationwide. NTD's Jason Blair has the details.
CVS announced in November that they are planning on closing 900 stores nationwide. They stated these will start happening in the spring of 2022, but some closures will be happening earlier. The first CVS store to close in San Francisco will be January 7th. After that, 5 more stores will close, and San Francisco will have 15 stores remaining open. In December, the California Attorney General spoke at CVS to announce the prosecution and sentencing of people who stole goods from Bay Area retailers, including CVS, Target, and Walgreens.
I'm here this morning to announce the sentencing of multiple individuals involved in what we believe to be one of the largest retail theft busts in California history.
The president of the California Retailers Association said the companies have called for action.
I think some of the bigger national chains are frustrated because we've been sounding the alarm that this issue is getting more and more dangerous.
CVS did not state if the closures were related to widespread retail theft in San Francisco. Prinzing said that CVS will offer comparable roles at new locations. Now I'm out front of the CVS location here in San Francisco, which will be the first one to close. The company said all prescriptions will be transferred to nearby CVS pharmacy locations, and these services will continue to help people have uninterrupted access. Jason Blair, NTD News, San Francisco.
And coming up, the pandemic's disruption of the global supply chain impacts millions of people struggling with food insecurity. Organizations that help put food on their tables are also affected. And getting your hands on some holiday-inspired sweets this year might be trickier than normal. Candy cane makers are having a hard time keeping up with surging demand as labor shortages, supply chain holdups, and rising sugar costs present new challenges. Find out more in just a minute.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but millions of you out there. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all of your support. At MyPillow, we not only have pillows, but we have hundreds of products, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We're offering the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have this exclusive offer on the standard size MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. Also have the queen size My Pillows, regularly $79.98, now only $24.98 with your promo code. And we have the king size, regularly $89.98, now only $29.98 with your promo code. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive this exclusive offer.
You may want to take a close look inside your refrigerator before making meals this holiday season. Fresh Express announces a recall. It affects numerous kinds of its branded and private label salad products that were made at the company's Illinois facility. Officials say the items in question may be tainted with listeria. The recalled foods were sent to retailers in the Northeast and Midwest and Canada. Fresh Express has stopped all work at that facility in Streamwood, and a sanitation review is underway. Consumers should return the recalled products to the place of purchase. The pandemic's disruption of the global supply chain affects more than just toys and semiconductors. The impact is felt by the millions of people struggling with food insecurity. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Gregory Silverman is the Chief Executive Officer of Westside Campaign Against Hunger in New York City. He explained how organizations like his have had to adapt.
This year we've fed over 77,000 New Yorkers in need, and that has meant that everything we do has had to change, and the supply chain has affected all of that.
Organizations that help put food on families' tables are also feeling the pressure, and Westside Campaign Against Hunger is no exception.
In the last few months, as the need keeps growing, we needed another vehicle to rent. And we couldn't get a vehicle to rent. It took us a month to get a rental 30-foot truck. These vehicles don't even exist right now. And secondarily, we didn't have enough drivers to drive these trucks.
The supply chain bottlenecks have driven up costs, contributing to inflation numbers not seen since the 1980s. Low-income households are having to make harder choices when it comes to putting food on the table.
Food is essential. We eat food every day. And if your Christmas gifts are still in their container, that's a problem, and you will eventually get them. But if you don't have something to eat every day, that is a catastrophe.
60-year-old Stephen Sherrill has struggled with food insecurity for 10 years. He says the pandemic has made it harder for him to find quality meats and vegetables.
Like meats, like dairies, and the meats are so expensive now. I can't afford those meats. And like you go into a lot of stores, many people just wipe out the supplies, and it's just, where do you go after that? And then a lot of the stores in the neighborhood, the foods are not fresh.
Organizations like the Westside Campaign Against Hunger are partnering with other needs-based groups to pull resources, and won't let food inflation or shortages caused by the supply chain slowdown affect its mission. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Candy canes, sugar plums, and gingerbread galore. Christmas time is the season of the sweet tooth, and as festive celebrations commence, cravings for a sugar fix often run wild. But this year, satisfying that hunger might get a little tricky. That's as confectioners battle to keep up production. Here's more.
For Andrew Schumann's Candy Cane Company, business has been anything but sweet this year.
We have had to turn away business this year. I wouldn't say that it is 30% of the overall business, but we certainly probably had to turn away 10% of the business.
Even though orders are pouring in, the Denver, Colorado candy maker is struggling to match demand. Just like farmers and retailers, the pandemic slammed candy confectioners with skyrocketing commodity prices, labor shortages, and transportation and supply chain snarls. Those roadblocks are stopping them from fully cashing in on the holiday season. The problem is becoming especially dire for Hammond's, the largest U.S. wholesale supplier of handmade candy canes.
So Hammond sells candy canes to thousands of retailers across the country. From your local candy store, to your furniture store, to your hardware store, to some of the larger stores that we know of.
The company has twisted and packed up the classic Christmas treat for more than a century, supplying major chains like Target, Cracker Barrel, and Cost Plus World Market. The company is paying out 30% more for labor this year, but its 250-person crew is down nearly 100 people. Schumann adds that long-term employees are clocking in for overtime weekly.
It's been really hard hiring workers this year. In fact, this has probably been, in the 15 years that I've been involved with Hammond's, the hardest that it's been to hire workers. Not only was it hard to hire them, the wages have kept creeping up as well. And so it's been really competitive out on the marketplace just with the lack of labor force. And so it's been a little bit of a bottleneck for us.
On the other hand, the National Confectioners Association reports that sales for sweets like candy canes and other non-chocolate goodies are up more than 34% from 2020.
It's been strong. It's been strong since last October. Our business has just been on fire. I don't know how to explain it, and I hope it doesn't stop because it's good for the people who are buying the candy and taste it and get that yummy feeling, and it's great for our employees and for the business.
Supply chain snarls have affected Hammond's ability to source displays and tin packaging materials from China. But besides the decorative wrappings, the main ingredient is becoming harder to come by too. Sugar prices have hit a decade high. Hurricane Ida destroyed much of the nation's sugarcane crop this year, while overseas nations like Brazil and Thailand harvested smaller yields than expected. That's on top of soaring freight prices, making imports costly.
We're trying to adjust our prices or adjust our ounce sizes to combat it, but there's only so much a person's going to pay for a gourmet candy cane, so we're just going to have to eat some of that as a company and just become more efficient.
Despite the challenges, Hammond's and other holiday treat makers are still going full steam ahead, working to stock shelves and bring a little extra sweetness to your season.
And about a half a century ago, a North Korean resettlement program deceived more than 90,000 ethnic Koreans in Japan. This program promised a paradise on earth, but what they found was far from the truth. A woman who lived through the program and escaped the communist country is now working to preserve the stories of other victims.
Iko Kawasaki left the Japanese port of Niigata over 60 years ago. Seeking a better life, she came to North Korea through a resettlement program that promised her a paradise on earth. But when her ferry arrived at a North Korean port, all she saw were hundreds of soot-covered corpses.
I was taught at school that it was the third biggest international port in North Korea. But once we got in there, I saw it was way shabbier than the port of Niigata we left. That moment, I figured that I was deceived.
She says ethnic Koreans in Japan had difficulty finding jobs back then. From 1959 to 1984, about 93,000 people participated in the resettlement program led by North Korea. They were promised that everything would be free in this paradise and that they would live a life without discrimination there. Instead, most ended up doing brutal manual labor in mines, forests, and farms. A second-generation North Korean born in Japan, Kawasaki was once curious about the communist country after studying at a pro-North Korean school. But Kawasaki says she was brainwashed.
When I decided to go to North Korea on my own, I didn't feel worried or uneasy at all. The state of mind explains how much I was saturated with the propaganda and education.
Kawasaki was trapped in North Korea for more than 40 years. She fled back to Japan in 2003 without telling anyone, including her family. She said she never feels at ease because her husband and children are still in North Korea, and she has lost contact with them since the CCP virus pandemic began. In early December, Kawasaki held a ceremony at the Niigata port to commemorate the victims who perished after joining the resettlement program. The city's Bodnam Street used to have trees that marked the program. Those trees withered and died over time. Kawasaki and other defectors now hope to plant new trees along the street.
I want to renew the Bodnam Street and revitalize a great line of trees. By doing so, I want to symbolize Niigata as a place where free and human rights were deprived by North Korea. The place should be protected and left as a bitter legacy of history.
Among her supporters is a 90-year-old former communist who once backed the resettlement program. He said he joined the Badnam Street Project because he feels guilty for supporting the program.
I went to North Korea in 1964, but I couldn't tell the truth of what I had seen there, especially those who are the members of the General Association of Korean Residents or communists couldn't say. That fact has been tormenting my heart.
A 2014 report by the UN Commission of Inquiry says the victims were forcibly disappeared, kept under strict surveillance, and deprived of liberty. Kawasaki and other defectors have sued North Korean leader Kim Jong-un over human rights violations. A ruling is expected in March.
Coming up, American tourists are back in Paris again. Local tour guides are happy to see their bookings rebound, and Americans are happy to enjoy tourist sites that aren't as crowded.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
Travel for K Original, Jola Namdo. The moment your five senses awaken, K Culture. The taste of Jola Namdo leads to the world, K Food. An exhilarating memory that I will cherish. There's no end to happiness, K Life. A great place to truly enjoy traveling, K Travel, Jola Namdo.
Some countries are closing their borders over fears of the Omicron variant, but that hasn't stopped some Americans from traveling the globe. Right now, Paris is seeing a big return of American tourists. Let's take a look.
Every time you walk, A Paris tour guide, Steve Calvo, is welcoming the rebound of American tourists. His business suffered from pandemic lockdowns and travel restrictions, but now he's seeing his bookings multiply. Calvo says this has him feeling optimistic.
Now we're seeing a comeback of tourists, and it's the type of tourist that is changing. It's more private tourists, no longer the mass tourism which I think suffered the most. Now it's small, private groups, more themed visits. This is what takes place more these days.
A mother and daughter from Long Island, New York, say they feel safe traveling. What's more, the duo says they're happy the Palace of Versailles isn't crowded.
I'm not really worried. I think, we were coming from New York and we were at the CDC at a level 4, and France at the time we booked was at a level 3. So I actually thought it was sort of going to some place that had a lower possibility of getting sick. This is my first time to Versailles, but I've seen photos, and honestly, I'm really happy that it's not crowded. I think it makes the day so much more enjoyable and you kind of have the place to yourself.
In 2019, Americans made up the largest chunk of tourists visiting the Paris region, making up around 16% of total arrivals. This October, about 7% of international tourists visiting Paris have been American. Between November and December, the number of visiting tourists has increased dramatically compared to the same time last year. Parisians also seem to like Americans as clients.
They are the best, because I don't know, they have the means, they have taste, they pose and they buy.
And for Americans, this is their second home, you know, so Americans are always traveling in France, Paris, they love Paris.
The number of Chinese and Russian tourists dropped drastically during the pandemic, but Europeans are steadily returning. Tourists from countries such as Germany, Spain, and the Netherlands now make up around a third of arrivals in Paris.
How do we predict COVID-19 deaths? Headlines often highlight worst-case scenarios, painting a gloomy picture of the Omicron wave unless restrictions are tightened. But critics looking at the latest data say the pessimistic scenarios are off the scale. Here's NTD's Jane Werrell with more.
Doubling every 3 to 4 days.
Epidemiologist Neil Ferguson, known as Professor Lockdown, was recently quoted as saying there could be up to 5,000 daily Omicron deaths this winter. But some advise to take these assumptions, which come from scientific modelling, with caution. Recent modelling put together by the government's Scientific Advisory Group shows scenarios relating to the Omicron wave, ranging from 200 to 6,000 deaths per day at their peak. Former head of health analysis at the Office for National Statistics says the high estimates are off the scale.
There is a range in there, but they don't tend to focus on the lower estimate. It's normally always the higher estimate. And what perpetuates that problem is that the UK media always jump on the higher estimate because obviously scary stories probably get more clicks on websites and sell more newspapers. So that's then the problem you have is for the vast majority of the public, the worst case scenario, which is very, very unlikely. And in this instance,
he says looking at the current available data, for there to be 5,000 deaths per day at the end of January, there would need to be about 25 million cases between now and then, assuming that Omicron is as severe as the Delta variant. To give some context, figures on Monday show there were just over 45,000 Omicron cases in the UK.
that would mean around 25 million cases between now and the end of January, the next 6 weeks. And cases are what we identify through the positive tests. We know there's more infections than cases because people don't have tests, and you can use some data that's been done to try and estimate that. And it's normally about just over 2 times the number of infections than there is cases. So those 25 million cases would mean 56 million infections between now and the end of January. So you're only as good as what your inputs are when it comes to modelling. And some of the modelling in the UK has been a bit awry, I would say, over the last 18 months. And some of the latest modelling that we've got just seems to be off the scale.
Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
And a perfectly preserved baby dinosaur has been discovered curled up inside its egg. The 70-million-year-old fossil preserved the embryonic skeleton of a bird-like dinosaur. It's been nicknamed Baby Yin Liang after the name of the Chinese museum which houses the fossil. Experts say baby dinosaur bones are small and fragile and are only very rarely preserved as fossils. So that makes it a very lucky find. The egg is about 7 inches long. The dinosaur is estimated to be 11 inches long from head to tail. Researchers believe as an adult, had it lived, it would have been between 4 and 6 feet long. Portuguese kite surfer Francisco Lufinha successfully sailed some 4,000 miles across the Atlantic using only the power of kites to pull his small boat. The 38-year-old adventurer set out from Cascais near Lisbon, Portugal on November 3rd. He arrived in the Caribbean island of Martinique on December 20th. But Lufinha was only at sea 25 of those days. His planned stop at the Canary Islands was prolonged because of adverse winds. Lufinha made the crossing completely on his own. The vessel he used was a 3-hull trimaran with a small cockpit-sized cabin. He acquired drinking water using a hand pump that converted seawater to fresh water, and all the power needed on board was generated using solar powers. Lufinha steered his launch using remote controls that positioned his kites. The kite-powered vessel reached top speeds of over 20 miles per hour. The lucky number 86148 is bringing joy to Madrid this week. Thanks to it, children from a local school won the jackpot in Spain's Christmas lottery.
Número 86.148, premiado con 4 millones de euros en cada serie.
The annual Christmas lottery is called El Gordo, the fat one, and for a good reason. The total pot this year is worth over $2.7 billion, which will be spread among many winners. This year, the top prize is worth about $450,000 for each winning ticket. The crowd attending the drawing burst into applause as a young student tearfully called the first prize. The special Christmas lottery dates back to 1812, and it's held every year on December 22nd. To mark its colorful tradition, Spaniards join with friends, family, and colleagues to buy lottery tickets, usually months ahead of Christmas. Data shows each Spaniard event spent an average of $75 on lottery tickets this year. And in Ukraine, Christmas decorations made from straw have traditionally been a big part of the festive season. One woman has been making them for 30 years and challenges herself to create new designs every time. Now she's teaching the next generation. The story comes from NTD's Eddie Aitken.
Straw decorations are a big part of Christmas celebrations in western Ukraine. Christmas spiders are one tradition that is making a comeback.
Traditionally, our spiders are composed of several elements. These elements are of different sizes. They are all assembled in one structure and therefore they become flexible. They are very dynamic. We can twist it in different directions or it will move on its own.
Marina has been making them for 30 years. Now the next generation is interested too. She's teaching Yulia how to make these traditional crafts.
For me, it is such a geometrical magic. You put a straw after a straw, very softly, very carefully, and finally you get such a beauty.
The designs are called Christmas spiders due to their appearance. According to legend, spiders are a symbol of wealth, and the webs are a reminder of the vanity of material goods. Marina says she never creates two identical spiders. There's something new each time. Her husband Andrei dries straws and cuts them with utmost precision.
First, I work on the main form, and then we look together with my wife and decide what could be added. It can be a flower, a bird, or an angel. It all depends on the mood.
Similar decorations are made in Poland and Lithuania, but they are woven in a single piece, whereas in Ukraine each element can be separated, making them more adjustable. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
It's the world's largest floating Christmas tree. Tourists from around the world are flocking to a lake in Italy to admire it. Drone footage shows the moon casting its light on the tree. The tree is made of 165 30-foot-long supporting poles, 4 miles of electric cable, and 2,600 perimeter lights. It's over half a mile long, but it consumes only a little more than 10 kilowatts of energy. More than 100 volunteers took part in this project, which started in 2019. The tree needs daily checks, small and large-scale maintenance, but so far, volunteers only needed to replace 7 bulbs since the project was launched. The nearby Christmas village of the lake also features a monumental nativity scene and food stands. People can enjoy hot drinks and admire the floating tree from a distance. And some say the best time to visit New York City is during the holiday season. From the ice skating rink in Central Park to the Rockefeller Christmas tree, the Big Apple offers plenty of festive attractions to both visitors and New Yorkers. NTD's Jason Perry has a story.
New York City has long been a popular destination for the holiday season. With its tall skyscrapers and busy streets, people from all over the world come to visit this historic city. And during the day, the ice rink at Central Park is filled with a mixture of skaters, from experts to first-timers. And when the sun goes down, Christmas decorations light up the streets as people enjoy the view and get into the festive spirit. The trumpet-blowing angels and the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree are also main attractions for tourists and locals alike. Why did you want to come to New York City?
We wanted to come to New York because we have never been there for Christmas and New Year, and we only saw in movies and TV shows, like all the light and all the stuff and the shopping, and we wanted to discover it. So here we go, and you will love it. It's way much better than Paris.
So as someone who's from New York, what do you look forward to in New York City during the holiday season?
Days off from work. Like, it's a more relaxed atmosphere. People are trying to be happy. It's not as much anger as the normal everyday New Yorker carries. So, a lot of good things seem to happen during the holidays.
This year, the Fifth Avenue Association has decorated 9 blocks with holiday art installations. The illuminated sculptures include an iconic yellow taxicab with presents in the trunk. Christmas is on Saturday, and tourism is bound to kick right back up again when the ball drops in Times Square to celebrate the new year. Jason Perry, NTD News, New York.
Which movie star looks just like a new Jeopardy winner? And which singer's song makes a return to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 Songs chart? Here's a Hollywood Minute.
Sam Buttrey, congratulations.
Sam Buttrey won Jeopardy's first ever tournament for college professors, and his celebrity lookalike wants in on the action. Steve Martin had some fun after viewers noted Buttrey's striking resemblance to the star. So great to split the prize money with Sam. The show responded to Martin's tweet, saying they would love to have him on anytime, in any capacity. Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You is the gift that keeps on giving. The 1994 holiday classic just made history as the first tune to hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 Songs chart 3 separate times. It's topped the chart in 2019, 2020, and now 2021.
I admire your courage, but you're gonna pick a fight you can't win before long.
The Yellowstone prequel, 1883, had a massive debut. The Paramount Network Western series starring Sam Elliott and Tim McGraw corralled nearly 5 million viewers, making it the most watched premiere on cable TV in more than 6 years.
And that's it for NTD News today, but you can still catch us tonight at 6:30 Eastern. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.